Hey, how's it going, everybody? Shaun here from Zoobox, and today we're going to be talking about Scream Queen, My Nightmare on Elm Street, a recently released documentary about actor Mark Patton. The summary on IMDb goes as follows: examines the infamous homoerotic subtext and the special place the film holds in the Nightmare franchise as well as the gay film canon. Partly in thanks to evolving social mores, Nightmare on Elm Street 2, which was considered controversial at the time of its release, is now being looked back upon with a new appreciation and fondness by horror aficionados and fans of the series. If you don't know, this movie was pretty negatively received. It made a lot of money. It did actually very well in the theater, but with fans, it was very negatively received, and it has kind of had a a negative reputation in kind of in the larger part of the series. It's just often looked at as the odd child out, you know. People don't usually flock to Nightmare on Elm Street 2 as being their favorite Nightmare movie. Everybody knows the best one is 3, Dream Warriors. That's the best one. That's a fact. But yeah, I did a review yesterday, if you want to go back and check that out, of the movie itself, and I talked about some of the things that made it interesting. So if you want to check that out, it's there. I'll actually link it at the end of this video. So this documentary, that is a pretty good summation of what the documentary is getting at. I would say that it is more specifically about Mark Patton himself and why he kind of fell off the map after Freddy's Revenge came out. And it's about him kind of reconciling this part of his life. He was an up-and-coming actor. He was starting to kind of make headway. Freddy's Revenge was his kind of first big leading role. And because of just a whole perfect storm of things, his kind of life fell apart right after it. And part of it was, and which is kind of, it's a weird chip he has on his shoulder about the homoerotic subtext of the movie. And he's like mad that the writer would never like explicitly say that. And the writer kind of implied that, well, because Mark Patton was cast, those things just seem like they're there, and they're really not. I mean, the writer was David Chaskin has, you know, since then he has recanted, and that's part of, not recanted, but he's clarified his statements, and that's part of what this documentary is about, is him getting to have a conversation with him. And I won't spoil it for you if he does or doesn't, but it's a theme that runs through it, and Mark Patton just kind of can't let it go. Even though there's a lot of things that Mark Patton himself just kind of chose, and a lot of things that happened to him, unfortunately. He actually got AIDS. He said, I got full-blown AIDS. He got AIDS. He had cancer at one point. So there was a lot of personal issues that kind of set him back. And the weird thing was, because he was, you know, he's openly gay now. He's more of like an activist now. But back then, he was a gay man, and he lived as a gay man. But he wasn't publicly a gay man. Like, he was just an up-and-coming actor. He just worked really hard. Was trying to move up in his career. Freddy's Revenge was part of that. And his agents were just like, well, this is a chance to see if you can play straight. Can you carry a movie as a straight man? Like, not as a straight man in the construct of a straight man versus a silly man. But like as a straight cis man, right? And they said, no, you're going to have to be a character actor afterwards. So it wasn't even really the script or the writing itself that gave him this negative perception of himself after the movie. It was like more of his agents, which probably, I'm sure it sucked. You know, that's awful. You know, you got to put it in the context of time. AIDS is ravaging through the country. The media surrounding it is pretty insane. They show some clips of just the kind of things that would be all like on the 6 o'clock news. And it's pretty wild. It's pretty wild. The fear people had. Now, I'm not even saying that some of like being afraid wasn't justified, right? It's like we're going through, we were going through one. I guess it's been canceled. It's been canceled due to people wanting to mass gather. So I guess it doesn't fucking matter anymore. But, so, you know, at the beginning of all this stuff with COVID, you know, we were all afraid. We didn't know what the deal was. We were like, please fucking shut down the cities and shut down stuff. And we'll stay indoors for 2 months, you know? And so I can't even imagine what it was like when something like AIDS hit, that being on that kind of a scale, especially if you were, especially if you were gay. Um, but yeah, but the people's, I mean, obviously that wasn't, it kind of, it motivated people to kind of let their colors fly a little bit and show that they're a little more bigoted. Although most of the people they show are like old guys, So, 1985, those dudes are, they were born in like 1910, 1920. So, it is what it is to a certain extent. We progress over generations. It's really hard to drag each other forward. And the average person kind of just keeps intact the mores of the time where they came of age, right? That's just kind of what forms them as a person. So thinking that they're going to be able to change when they're like 65, 70 is a little short-sighted. Um, so yeah, there's a lot of that kind of stuff here. And it doesn't really, this is a weird thing. There's another Shudder documentary. It's called Horror Noir. It's a black history of like horror movies, history of black horror movies, like kind of the blaxploitation horror movies and other stuff like Candyman, and they kind of just don't ever stick the landing. You're left at the end of these things sometimes wondering like, okay, well there were some interesting things in here, but I mean, this is not exactly revelatory. I mean, I think this has Mark Patton on its side, as your kind of your narrative through line, the person to attach yourself to. And I had a lot of compassion for Mark and his life. And I felt bad for him. I think I had the appropriate amount of empathy for him. But he's not like really a sad person per se. Like he's not like mad about what he's been doing in the interim. And getting to come back and having a little bit of fame, and he's been in a few crappy movies since then. Because back in, was it 2014, 2015? No, it was way before that. Like 2009, 2010. The documentary Never Sleep Again, which was like this huge series retrospective on A Nightmare on Elm Street. The whole series. They did all the movies. They touched on all the movies. It's like a 4.5 hour documentary. And that they actually had to hire a private investigator to find him. He had just completely dropped off the map. Nobody knew where the fuck he was. But they found him. And that's kind of when this notion of the movies kind of hidden messages and deeper themes about, repressed homosexuality and being a closeted gay man and how that can just torture you and affect you in this kind of really monstrous way. And that's when they started openly discussing that stuff. Whereas before they had kind of like, no, I didn't know. No, that's not what I meant. Like they wouldn't be upfront about it. But it's given him a little bit of his shimmer back. He's gotten to do a few things. He gets to go to horror conventions and meet all these people, that this movie has positively affected, for a lot of like young gay horror fans, this is a kind of a seminal movie for them. They felt like it spoke to them. And it's cool that he's back out there just meeting people and hanging out, and they get to meet an icon, a cinematic icon. They get to meet one. It's pretty cool. And he seems like a really nice dude. Seems like a really nice guy. And that's awesome. I mean, I don't think they would have, if he was a dick, I don't think they would show you that. But I mean, it's interesting. It was an interesting documentary, and I didn't learn anything, and I don't think it really has much to say. Honestly. Because it's all so apparent. It's like a foregone conclusion. Most of what the movie is trying to say or what it's about. Maybe that's just me. Maybe I'm just too cynical, or maybe, I'm just too wise, Look at this beard. It's got some gray in it. I wear glasses. I'm a very wise man. So who knows? But I don't think it was a complete waste of time. I just wish that there was like a stronger thesis statement. Because I don't think it really executes it doesn't ever go into anything in depth. And when you have a documentary that is an hour and 40 minutes long about one movie, we should be able to get into some sort of the sociological aspects of it. And they have like these film professors that teach like queer cinema and stuff at probably some overpriced NYU college or New York City college or whatever, and they don't like it's just not that interesting the way they frame things. They just like think you should just be invested because of the concept of the subject matter. And rather than like making a case for it or making a historical case for it. I mean, they try to, but it's also, they do this thing where people recontextualize everything into how we see the world today. So they go look back at everything that was ever made or ever written, and they project things onto it because we don't have the same cultural touchstones. So now they just mean whatever the fuck we want them to mean. It's this very postmodern idea of how we deal with art. I'm not a huge fan of that. But yeah, I wish it just had a stronger thesis statement. I wish it kind of just got more. I wish there was more open dialogue with the writer, David Chaskin. I wish just fucking talk about it, This should have just been maybe like a series of interviews. Just have Mark Patton just talk to the creative people involved in making the movie, and then you could intersperse it with like talking heads of sociology professors and horror fans and stuff. But it's really not that. It's kind of all over the place. But Mark Patton does give you a through line. He grounds it for you. I'd say most of the movie is actually just spent talking about the context of the time of which the movie was made. It's not even really specifically about the movie for a large proportion of it, which is fine. It's fine. Maybe there might be a lot of people that are ignorant to that, the way things were at that time. I feel like I was just kind of aware of it. I don't know. I mean, I'm not like a historian. I'm not an expert or anything, but I felt like I knew everything that was being said. So, I mean, and they wrap that history up into Mark Patton's career and life, and it's yeah, I don't know. I mean, like I said, if you have Shudder, I don't think you're gonna feel like you're wasting your time. A Nightmare on Elm Street 2 is a much more interesting movie than people give it credit for. It really is. I don't think it's a great movie. I wish it wasn't part of the Nightmare on Elm Street series. It would have been a cool, like if it was his own movie. It would have been cool if like somebody like, what's his name? Brian Usna, the guy who did Society and Bride of Reanimator. He was like a co-producer with Stuart Gordon. And he made some movies himself. Society is amazing if you haven't seen it. But it would have been awesome if somebody like that had taken this kind of story and done something. Because those are the type of guys, Stuart Gordon, Brian Usna, those are the kind of guys that would do that. They would have done it. They wouldn't have held back. It would have been the thing. And the great irony is, if it was that, Mark Patton probably would not have wanted to be involved in it. Because Mark Patton was building his career. He wasn't interested in being an activist or a gay actor. Like that wasn't his bag. And I'm not faulting him for that. I'm just saying. So when the film itself ends up being one of those things, one of those Brian Usna type movies, I don't think he was prepared for that. Maybe he thought he was making something more conventional, it's weird because there's a lot of conflict and sort of almost rewriting of history depending on who he talks to. And it's in the documentary where he kind of contradicts himself. Like he almost like claims like he didn't know, he's like acting as if he didn't realize the subtext was there and then was kind of mad that it was there in the final product, I guess. But then other people are like, well, yeah, obviously it was there. Even one of the other actors, one of his co-stars was just like, yeah, I asked when I came in, is this like a queer movie, a gay movie? It was about, closeted gay kid. So I don't know. It's interesting. I mean, he's just obviously got a lot of conflicted feelings. He's trying to find some sort of closure. I mean, they posit in the film that he does get some type of closure, but who can say? Who can say, really? Yeah, but I guess that's all I really got to say about it. It's watch it or don't. If you're a big Nightmare on Elm Street fan, obviously watch it. It's okay. It's okay. If you have Shudder and you want to watch a documentary on Shudder that is a Shudder like original or exclusive or whatever, watch Cursed Films by Jay Cheel. I might actually even do a review of that at some point. Maybe rewatch them. It's like 5 half-hour episodes, and he's like a real documentary filmmaker. These people feel like they make kind of glorified YouTube videos. There's no artistry. Like Jay Cheel is making like a film about films, but he's making like a film. These people are making kind of stock, just documentaries that are, usually are only interesting for about 25 minutes, and then they just repeat themselves for the rest of it. The rest of the 3/4 following. That's a big. This has that problem too. It pretty much says everything it's going to say in 20 minutes, and then doesn't really dive into shit. And that was kind of disappointing to me. I was disappointed that it didn't go deeper into the themes and the history of this kind of stuff in horror material, or especially of the era. It would have been interesting, but I didn't. So, all right, everybody, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. If you'd like to follow Zoobox, you'd like to know everything that's Zoobox, there are links in the description for Facebook, Instagram, my personal Twitter. If you have a recommendation of something you want me to talk about, just drop a line. I will probably do it. All right, everybody, thanks for watching. Goodbye.